Shout out. And the thing about it is, like, an interesting fun fact about you is that you graduated, or you went to the same school as the owner of this station, Mr. Johnny O, Nerv DJs.
I'm a railroader.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, a railroader. So you
Grew up in Conway, Glendale. Absolutely, 76.
Yeah, 76.
I'm telling my age, but I'm spared at 76.
Listen, us light skinned people got to stick together for real.
Oh, you pulling that? I think that is long gone. I think the cycle is cycled away from us.
Right, exactly. But no, I'm not just saying. But the thing about it is that you've been a state senator, you've been a councilman, you've been everything to the city of Cleveland. Why are you running for Congressional District 11 right now?
Well, I've been in public service 32 years. I've been working in the community all my life. Grew up in the Conway Glenville neighborhood, Northeast Cleveland, public schools. I say that to say that, so I've been so committed to do public service that the natural next step for me, because I've served at the local level and I've served at the state level. Mm-hmm. The next natural step is the federal level. And I've always believed that public policy, when done correctly, can actually make change. It can impact change. And so I advocate for that. So I want to be in a position to be able to use the legislative process at the federal level to bring true change in the 11th congressional district, which I've known all my life. And, my family goes back about 120 years into this district. That's how many generations. So that's why it's about bringing change back, dealing with this poverty, dealing with helping the working class. I know we're going in middle class, so we'll get through. I know we're going to talk about a lot of these issues, but that's why I'm ready to get to work at the next level. So,
Lazala, this is one of your good friends, Jeff Johnson. Anything you want to ask him?
I only came because of her.
Damn. That hurts, Jeff. That hurts. I said that really hurts. I really am. I'm glad she's on the show now, but that really. Wait a minute. Hold on. Years ago, I'm just going to bring this other fun fact up. Years ago, that you were on when you were running for City of Cleveland mayor.
Yep.
It was also a person that was running for housing court judge. That was W. Monet Scott. Actually, you were on the same show. I have that recording. So you end up working for her. How'd that happen?
It's just, it's ironic. I didn't see her that night that she was on the show before me, but, it is a great opportunity to be working under Judge Monet Scott. I am the court administrator for the Cleveland Housing Court. She's wonderful to work for. She is committed. She came in and then COVID hit last year. And so not only was she a judge that just came in, but she was hit with the biggest pandemic in 100 years. And she has done a masterful job of moving the court through all of that and the team. And I'm delighted to be right there next to her to help her to achieve, the issues of evictions, issue of, housing code violation, trying to make sure that we have a community that is removing its dilapidated housing and keeping up the code. So it's a very important job, and I'm delighted that the voters sent her to the Justice Center.
Right. Shout out to the first African-American woman in that position. Absolutely. So, being a part of history. And then shout out to, so you want to still work with, okay, speaking of congressional hearings, we just had people get arrested for the Capitol Hill riot. Now, if you were to go to Congress, if you were elected, or in this case, if you were primed to be elected, you would have to go to that. How did you feel about the Capitol Hill riot when it happened?
It is without a doubt one of the worst events in the history of this country. Probably the top three, if you want to put it that way. There's a lot of things happened way before you and all of us were born in this country. Clearly, slavery is number one.
Right.
When it comes to the just issues and events. But it's, I wasn't surprised by, ultimately, when you sit back and think about it, you weren't surprised because there were so many signals that were out there that the white supremacy movement, the domestic terrorism was percolating under former President Trump. The fact that they crossed the line and went after our Capitol was shocking, but not surprising when you think about where we were during those whole 4 years, and Trump just building it up and building up. And you got to understand that what this is very similar to reaction right after emancipation, when certain interests became afraid of the changing demographics of our country, and when African Americans got the right to vote right after the emancipation, there was a pushback. Mm-hmm. We're not going to obviously allow the pushback to where when Reconstruction was thrown out and Jim Crow was kicked in, but we do have to be mindful that there are attempts of our contemporary days of Jim Crow efforts.
Right.
So I want to go to Washington mindful of the fact that we should not take this for granted and keep an eye on our democracy.
Right. So, again, thank you for there's a lot of people in this particular race. You would probably not be the first or the last person I interviewed. There's a lot of people in that race, particularly two African American women, Shontel Brown and Nina Turner. And and I know that you guys, even though you're running against each other, you're not enemies. You're just opponents,
right.
Correct?
There's actually at least one more woman in there. Pamela Pinckney has jumped in as well.
Wow.
And it's 10 right now. And there's 2, I think, they're counting their petitions, so it could be up to 12 folks in there, and at least 3 African American women. Mm-hmm. And it appears to be all African American at this point when I was looking at the list just a few minutes ago.
So I didn't know if Flannery.
He did not file.
Okay, he did not file. Well, there's pretty much a race. How do you feel about, the one thing, going back to the mayor's race, you came in third behind Zach and Mayor Jackson. Mm-hmm. And the African-American vote was actually split between the 3 of you. How do you feel about it now running for this race, especially with 2 women involved? Well,
because it's a predominantly majority African-American district, mm-hmm. And because it's been held by African Americans since it was created back in the late 60s, it will be African American, this time out as well.
Right.
So it's a little different because the percentage breakdown of turnout and what have you was a little different, and you had a more diverse field of people running in 2017. Mm-hmm. So there will be an African American congressperson selected on August 3rd, and then in November to serve out former Congresswoman Fletcher's term, which goes to May of 2023.
Right.
January 2023.
So what if or when you are elected, what would you
just keep it at when?
When you want to win? Yeah, you know what?
Let's say when I'm elected.
When you elected, how? Right. How? What is your first priority? Is it healthcare? Because the pandemic. You mentioned the pandemic. That's healthcare, and we also we also police, and we also still have crimes against women, sex crimes, things of that nature. You headed up the sex crimes unit. Pretty much, you helped with that when you were state senator, correct?
Yeah. No, I actually led the creation of the sex crime child abuse unit when I was a councilman back in the 80s. Mm-hmm. After 2 young teenagers, black girls, 14 years old, was snatched off the streets of Glenville and East Cleveland, and one in East Cleveland, but they both died in Glenville. Mm-hmm. And at that time, we had different sex crime units in 6 different police districts, and I felt that we needed to centralize the approach because rapists don't recognize police district lines. So that was and I raised that during this campaign because leadership is about connecting the dots between problem and solution. Mm-hmm. And it's important that we select someone to send to Washington that understands that you cannot just articulate a problem, you have to be able to think up solutions and bring them together. And that was one example early in my career that I think we came up with a solution that still exists today.
Right.
Sex crimes and child abuse.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially with human trafficking, and
particularly with that has obviously become a much more known problem. Mm-hmm. It probably was much of a problem even back when folks didn't really realize it, particularly in certain communities. But you asked me what my priorities would be. Without a doubt, the number one issue in the 11th congressional district is economics. Mm-hmm. Because this district swings from poverty to prosperity. It is a district of over 700,000 people. And within the city of Cleveland, for example, we're about 23% at or below the poverty line. But when you go, that's everyone, all neighborhoods. But when you kick in and focus in on specific neighborhoods, the African American is around 43%. And Akron is in this district well, so you've got to look at Akron. They're about 35% African American in poverty, and children is at 50%. So poverty is an issue, and you ultimately have to be able to deal with the issues of having policy and initiatives to be able to deal with poverty. But at the same time, we have prosperity. You have the cities of Beechwood, and you have cities of Orange, and you have cities that are also middle class. And then your working class in between. So a congressperson has to be able to deal with that, the breadth of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so because economic is so critical, you focus on income,
right.
minimum wage of $15.
Mm-hmm.
I stood with SEIU and others, Raise Up Cleveland, so that we tried to put it on the ballot in Cleveland. Some powerful people actually stopped us. But leadership is in the streets. While folks in this race who are articulating certain things now were nowhere around when myself and others were in the streets trying to get $15 an hour for our citizens.
Right.
So then also you got to go beyond just giving them a higher income. You got to also be able to help the federal government bring in the ability to create wealth, which we don't talk about enough. Is creating wealth. That means being able to get rid of the barriers that stop folks from having capital when they're small businesses, or being able to allow for folks to develop assets in their life. In other words, become homeowners. Get rid of the redlining in certain neighborhoods, and being able to have wealth built. We don't save enough in our lives.
Do we have enough to save sometimes?
Well, the key is raising the ability for folks to bring income, at the same time helping them understand how to save toward assets that builds long-term wealth. I'm not talking about necessarily being a millionaire, but being the ability to pay and take care of your families and deal with crisis. Healthcare in economics, there's a thin line between healthcare and economics, because one bad diagnosis, one disease, and then we're in bankruptcy. Most families are in bankruptcies. So when I mention economics, healthcare is impacted by health economics. Crime is impacted by economics. Every inequity that is within our community ultimately is impacted by economics. So that's why I believe we need to be number one. We have to invest in entrepreneurial spirit. We have to encourage minority business, female businesses, and we're talking about grants and being able to deal with helping families feed themselves and be able to work and bring in build that wealth.
Okay. So when people talk about the minimum wage, the main thing you always hear is, well, but then the small businesses will close. I can't afford to pay my staff. What is the way to handle a small business who, if they really do pay a living wage, now their business is actually in jeopardy? Is there an answer for that? Well,
first of all, is to dispel a lot of the misunderstanding, because it is not one doesn't equal the other. If you raise the minimum wage $15 an hour, it doesn't equate directly, meaning that a business will have to lay folks off. You do have to help the small business to be stabilized, particularly since COVID. And that's why the bill we just passed, the law just passed, that President Biden is now, that we're proud of, the COVID bill. It has had a significant amount of money that went toward small businesses. But more and more people across this country are beginning to understand that an individual should not work 40 hours a week and still have to be on food stamps. Mm-hmm. And we have to keep the small businesses working, and we can't accept that it's either or, because $7.25 an hour federal minimum wage is unacceptable. Agreed. It's just unacceptable.
It is.
So now the floor has to be $15 an hour, not the ceiling. It has to be the floor. And then along the way, we do what's necessary to help small businesses to sustain the change. And I think that's the way we have to look at it.
So by giving them more tax breaks to small businesses and give them more opportunities to hire more employees.
Well, you definitely use the tax system to be part of it. The other is the ability for us to help open up markets for small businesses to be part of the larger economic chain. Those who may be connected to the automotive industry, the small businesses, those who may be connected to agriculture industry, those who are dealing with services for folks in the neighborhoods. The ability for us to recognize and give tax breaks, as well as is not loans but grants. You know, the city of Cleveland, for example, is about to receive $541 million because of the COVID bill. How they spend that, invest that, is critical, and it's important. And the county is going to get significant dollars in the city of Akron as well. Small businesses have to be on that consideration.
I'm sure if a small business got like $2.5 million, they could pay their employees a little bit more, or hire some more people, and create more revenue.
But also to help them with the product they're selling or the service they're selling, so that they can stabilize the market for themselves and expand it. So the more customers you have coming in and doing their hair, the more customers you have coming in and buying whatever you might be selling on
online
within your business, is critical. It's not just giving them money to pay it; it's also giving them money to be stronger, to expand.
Or media companies like this one.
Absolutely. I mean, my office is the building we're in right now, which is in the Euclid Green area. It is made of small businesses. It is hundreds of small businesses within this building. It's a great model that Lance Johnson, who owns this building, I have been here with my law office for at least 7 years, and it provides for access to the internet, reasonable rates, free parking, and that's a model that I actually want to articulate in Washington is help small businesses by putting them in situations where they have lower overhead, so that they can grow. Now, many of these folks here have jobs during the day, and then they come here and deal with their dream of being a small business person after work or weekends, and then we have folks who are insurance folks as well, and of course, budding stars. Broadcasting.
Thank you very much. I feel
living
so.
That dream, living that dream.
I feel so loved. I feel so loved. Sometimes, you talked about, and sometimes the paycheck protection, the PPP loans, it's not going to get it all the time. You have that, but then money go in, money go out. So you're going to need that grant. And you mentioned something that caught my ear, and it's generational wealth. You want to expand more on that?
Yeah, it's a recognition of breaking the cycle of poverty. And and there's some critical components of it, short term and long term. The long term is education, stabilizing our public education system, having the younger generations connecting to the ability for them to get to an educational level, so that they can ultimately get on a pathway, whether it is to a 4-year college or whether it is through vocational education to get professional degrees. So that's one way out. I know many folks who I have grown up with who took the education route out of poverty, or out of just above poverty, because there are a good number of families that are 1 or 2 paychecks away from falling under.
Right.
And so the ability of education, that's the long term. The short term is being able to come in, and President Biden's talked about this, investing in child care, so that parents can be able, a single parent who's in a household with 2 kids, for example, can go and work, because child care is being made available. And of course, we're talking about expanding the concept of education to pre-kindergarten.
Right.
Which Biden is talking about as well. So being able to deal with poverty, and of course the child tax credit, and making that permanent. They are already speculating with this proposal, the American Rescue Plan, that you get $3,600 for a child under 6 years of age, $3,000 for a child above. That alone, they say, will be close to 50% of children will be taken out of poverty based on that alone. it takes that type of aggressiveness. Now we got to get it through Congress and around the filibuster, but those are the things that I would fight for as Congressperson as I go into Washington after November election.
Okay.
So what? So the thing about it is, we got some other things going on as well. First of all, the George Floyd issue. Police brutality. Everybody talks about defunding the police. What is your take on that?
Well, first, I don't use the term defund the police. I think it's inaccurate and provocative. But I do support.
First of all,
I do support the ideas that underlie it, and that is the redistribution of resources that are now being used within the public safety departments. There's 18,000 police departments in the United States of America, and each one can have their own version of training. Each one can have their own version of how it recruits and how it spends its money. So there needs to be some uniformities, some standards that the federal government can put out there. Even though policing will always be a really local issue, I think the federal government, through use of its financial weight, can use it to balance out things like the George Floyd law that's in front of the U.S. Senate is speaking about. We can't tell localities directly to stop chokeholds or no-knock warrants, but we can deal with what federal agencies are involved when it comes to public police services. We can impact them directly, but we can also use the power of our purse to move these localities into get rid of no-knock warrants, which was Breonna Taylor, the issue that caused her death.
Right. And
deal with standards about police brutality or excessive force, which ultimately led to George Floyd's death. But locally, Tamir Rice, Tanisha Anderson,
right.
The 100 Bullets case, those cases that are very near and dear to us. So it's a matter of this redistributing. And let's talk about that for a second. What that means is that in the the late Tanisha Anderson was a case where the family called our Cleveland police officers to their home and was based on a mental health issue. Mm-hmm. And they sent patrol officers.
Uh-huh.
Now, even if they got some training, they are not professionals dealing with mental health.
Right.
And ultimately, their inability to know how to deal with that and see how much of a threat she was not, it ultimately led to her death because they couldn't handle it. We now need to expand the definition of public safety and bring in the professionals from the behavioral health field. And behavioral health means addiction and mental health, being able to have professionals who deal with that. And in San Francisco and some other cities, they actually have these professionals trained in that who respond to 911 calls either with or without a patrol officer based on the assessment of whether there's any guns involved, what have you. What I'm saying to you is that the elements of redistribution is talking about using other professionals and not putting it all on patrol officers. Mm. And that's what we have to do in Cleveland. That's what we need to do in this country so that we have better results when the 911 is called, because we will always need the ability to have the police to respond, but we also need to have police who do respond that look more like us, who have been trained, who are under standards that have been much improved, and that's under the George Floyd Act, also
right.
Who no longer are protected from lawsuits when they cross the line. Mm-hmm. So that's what the George Floyd law as well is provides.
Somebody on my Facebook, Tamika Chandler, shout out to you, Tamika, she brought that up, that she said we need more people like us on the force to understand our own communities. I just don't want another hashtag. We just don't want any other hashtags and T-shirts. No more what is it, like the riots that came down, like, our ancestors, punished us for what we did wrong that hit this country and all over the world with the Black Lives Matter movement. The thing is that, intelligent, wise, you are, but there's also adversity that you faced legally. So the thing about it is, how would you use that adversity that you faced in your early political career to become the next congressman of District 11?
Well, when we look at that, police is one component of the larger question of how do we reform the criminal justice system. Uh-huh. The police reform is one aspect. Now, it's a significant aspect because they have the power of life and death. But we also have issues of prison reform. Mm. And even before I was convicted 23 years ago, and went to prison for 9 months, and came out and ultimately had to rebuild not only my life but also my career, because I love public service, so I stayed in public service. It's being part of understanding the criminal justice system, even from that angle, to understand that there's something fundamentally wrong when we name our system a Department of Rehabilitation when there's little rehabilitation going on. There's more
Right.
warehousing than rehabilitation. I knew that even when I didn't personally experience it, but it enhanced my ability to understand, again, the problem to find solutions. I was a big advocate of parole board reform in the state of Ohio when I was a state senator. I sat on the prison inspection committee as well as the sentencing commission. So I have experience understanding what really goes on. I was a state senator when there was the prison riots that occurred in southern Ohio. So having been someone who went to prison and ultimately came back, and Ohio Supreme Court, when all of the justices of the Ohio Supreme Court, led by Republicans, unanimously gave my law license back to me, and then ultimately my record was sealed by the courts as well. So I earned the right to be able to be a lawyer again and to be able to have my record sealed. But it wasn't until I went to the people in 2009 when I ultimately was chosen to be an elected official again.
Right.
When I went to city council, and I served 2 terms, got reelected. And I came in, I attempted to be mayor of Cleveland and came in third, as you said earlier. But along the way, I also was a director under Jane Campbell's administration.
Right.
I led the Department of Community Relations. And today, I'm the administrator of the Housing Court. So I've actually served in all 3 branches of local government: the legislative, the executive, and the judicial, and the 2 levels of government. And so all of my experiences has allowed me to be the most experienced in this race, the most qualified. I have 3 college degrees. I'm an attorney. I have a master's, and I have a business and a bachelor's degree. So I'm well prepared, and I'm well and proven, and so we're ready to get started. So that experience is part of who I am, that makes me stronger to be able to understand what the ability of reform is, and being able to help those who've come out of prison to find another pathway, how important that is. And so they can count for that as priority of mine.
So pretty much, you're the example of anybody going through any adversity, no matter if they've been incarcerated or not, or just had a record. You're the example of somebody that overcame those odds, rebuilt their life, and now you're on the verge of becoming the next congressman in District 11. So, how does that feel that somebody can look at, if Jeff Johnson can do it, then, he's encouraged me to do it. How does that feel for you to have somebody look at you like that?
Well, it's absolutely a power that I take, I don't take for granted. I've spoken to many groups along the way. On this campaign trail, I've not hidden from that issue. In fact, I've encouraged folks, because there is a too large of a percentage of folks in our communities, black and white and Hispanic, that have served time or have criminal records. And they need to understand that there is a pathway to live your dreams, but it does require that you have to do self-analysis, you have to prepare yourself, and you have to make sacrifices and remove yourself from whatever path that took you to make those mistakes.
Right.
Whether it's remove yourself from the environment or focus in on what you and commit to what you need to do. In other words, those who have records for selling drugs can't continue to hang on a corner with folks selling drugs. You got to remove yourself from the environment. But there's also the ability that you have to be able to be given a chance, and you got to earn that chance. Jane Campbell, who just became mayor, gave me the opportunity. She gave me my first job when I got out of prison, and I was able to prove myself, and then she promoted me to become a director in her cabinet. So people, you prepare yourself, and there will be opportunities for you to take advantage of, but you have to prepare yourself.
Right.
You have to do your work.
Shout out to Mika Chandler's, which she says that's presidential material. So think about doing a lateral move, and in 2024 you see think about you see it. Like you said you ready for public service, so that's the ultimate. So do you think it be? So you said you're working with the Biden campaign.
I'm working with the Biden campaign, and I also was with the Hillary campaign 2016. I was their state director of the African American Vote. I've walked with presidents, and I've walked with those who have been incarcerated. I've been in both extremes. Bill Clinton, White House, when I was state senator when Bill Clinton was president. I spent a number of times going into Washington, being in the White House. So God has been good in that I've seen both, and I recognize that it's all about His glory and and He gives us certain talents for us to use and not abuse. And so I'm not making the one thing I'm focused on. The one thing I want to do is go to Congress, because I understand the many layers of a congressperson. It's not just sitting in a committee room saying yay or nay. It's also doing constituent services. It's also having local office here, making sure that veteran who is not getting the service at the VA is taken care of.
Right.
Making sure that the national monies that coming into the communities go into every community. And that when we talk about creating opportunity corridors, that we don't, and opportunity zones, we don't send them to the well-to-do neighborhoods. You put them in where they are actually needed. And so the many layers of a congressperson, again, is beyond hitting the button of yay and nay. It really is about sitting in the committees and articulating the issues in this community, such as environmental justice, how pollution and lead pipes impact my constituents, and why we have to support the Biden plan that gets rid of every lead pipe in America, because that means clean water.
Right.
Flint, Michigan is not the only place where there's a problem with lead in water.
Right.
We have a good water system in Cuyahoga County because we've invested in it, but we have rental housing that's full of lead paint. So while we're not Flint, we are Cleveland. And that's why I had to lead the fight along with the organization called Clash to get the city of Cleveland to pass a law that allows for us now to get rid of the lead in rental housing. And then assist those who own housing and live in their housing, if they want to, can come and get some financial support and remove lead as well. That is a significant environmental justice issue in our community. These children, before our process was we had to test children. That's like we call the canary in the coal mine.
Yes.
When you test children to find out if they have lead, and then if they are positive, it's too late. There's not a process of getting rid. We have to do a proactive approach, catch it before lead catches the child. And that's what my bill, when I put in city council, that they didn't vote on until I left, and they put someone else's name on it, and 80% of it, but that's all good. It's passed.
Right. At least it passed.
It passed.
Your effort passed.
And then now it's all about, we just started in April that this this new law is implementing. So I love to be able to go from problem to solution, and that's why I stuck with public service, even when I stumbled and fell and had to rebuild. I've had a position of public trust after leaving prison, more positions of public trust than I had before that. Because, the diversity of the positions I've held, I think shows folks that they can trust me by sending me to Washington, that I'm better and stronger, and I understand the mistakes that were made.
Pretty much, sometimes the tracks take a bump in the road. I had plenty of bumps in the road, and I had plenty of bumps on my backside. So, understandable. The thing about it is that why, a specific reason, out of this crowded group of people running, should Jeffrey D. Johnson stand out? Why should people vote for you?
Because we first should look at the position itself. What's relevant is that you look at a person who seeks to be in public office, you first look at what position are they seeking. So an individual who has certain credentials, qualifications, and they want to become a member of a school board. It's different preparation for that, or a member of city council. It's different preparation that's acceptable for that than it is to go to Washington and represent 700,000 people on a national stage. So when people look at the choices they have, they should look at who is prepared to actually hold the seat and do do them proud.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at the three people who held a seat before this next person will be selected. There were all three were attorneys.
Right.
Congressman Louis Stokes, Congresswoman Stephanie Tubbs Jones, and Congressman Marsha Fudge. They were all attorneys.
Mm-hmm.
They were all well into their careers with successes. Congressman Stokes was a well-known lawyer.
Right.
Stephanie Tubbs Jones was a judge, county prosecutor, and then Marsha Fudge was an attorney. She also was with Stephanie as her chief of staff. Then she became mayor of Warrensville Heights, and then she became Congressman. So they were all prepared. So the question I asked the voters to ask is, look at the field of 10 or 12, and who is most qualified, who is most prepared. Again, as I said, I'm an attorney. I'm the only attorney in this race.
Mm-hmm.
But not just being an attorney, I'm also someone who went and got his education growing up in the streets of Glenville and Collinwood, where I have a master's degree and a law degree from Case Western.
Right.
I spent time at Cornell University, so I have my education qualification. But I also have the streets qualification. Everyone knows that I've been on the front line. I've walked into living rooms where I've seen poverty up close. I walked into a house where the front room is filled with aluminum foil because of a mental health issue where they think people are listening in on them. I've seen it all.
Tinfoil hats.
Right, exactly. And so that is also a qualification that is beyond academics. But when you have academics plus practical experience in the streets, then I think that separates me. And then I have 30 years of public service. Someone said, well, you're a career politician. No, I'm a career public servant. There's a big difference. Politicians, in and of themselves, seek positions because they just want to perpetuate who they are. But when you are fighting and achieving along the way, that's true public service. No one ever called Congressman Stokes just a politician, or Stephanie Tubbs just a politician.
Right.
They were effective, and Marsha, they were effective. So I want them to look at how many years candidates who are in front of them this year have actually been in public service, and what type of positions have they held. I want them to ask the question, well, has individuals actually been here working on our behalf? Or have they been running around the country giving speeches and not been here when we're dealing with issues like poison lead or issues like minimum wage and poverty? Who has been here actually working in the streets, working hard to find a solution, dealing with police brutality cases? And so that's relevant too. Who's proven, who's prepared, who can go to Washington and from day one begin to do the work from day one. And when you look at all of that, I believe I'm the one who fits that. Now I'm biased, but I think this is a legitimate analysis when you're looking at this significant position of being a congressperson versus any other position that may be lower from a standpoint of the political hierarchy.
So pretty much, you ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
That's the bottom line. The thing about it is, the bottom line is that Jeff Johnson said he's ready. And usually when, and if you know this guy, and as much as people know Jeff Johnson, you know that this man is prepared. Once he said he's ready, there's really absolutely nothing you can do to stop it, except, of course, you had to have, like I said before, the mayoral's race was to the point where it came down to three people: you, Zach Reed, and Mayor Jackson. Now, is there a telephone number, website, anything that people can contribute to their campaign?
Yeah, thank you for that. My website is jeffjohnsonforcongress.com, and my email is jeffjohnsonforcongress@gmail.com, and I prefer they use the email to connect with me. I have one phone, that's a cell phone, and most of it is work-related or whatever personal life I may have. But they communicate with me through my email, jeffjohnsonforcongress@gmail.com. And contributions can be made through my website, jeffjohnsonforcongress.com, as well as people who want to volunteer. But again, we will discuss the issues. I think part of the analysis for all 10 or 12 of us is also listen to the depth of knowledge. People can talk about, they know they want better climate change, or they want better education, or they can stay on the surface. But conversations like what I'm having with you and Masala is that we're able to drill down a little bit versus quick handshakes or 30-second elevator speech. Find out whether they really understand that in our society, in our 11th district, that the fundamental issue of structural racism blends through all the issues of inequities. We have inequities in healthcare, inequities in criminal justice, inequities in education, inequities in economics. And what I mean by equity, there's a difference between equity and equality.
Explain.
Equality is when you're talking about making people as they exist at that moment all equal, giving them equal access. Equity means that you recognize that before you got to this point to give equality, that there were barriers that didn't help people to be in the same position. So when you talk about, for example, lifting yourself up by your own bootstraps, well, there were no boots in many cases.
Right. Shout out.
When you're in that race and you don't take off from the same starting point when you're running the race. That is an inequity. So when you talk about fighting for equity, you're talking about recognizing the redlining of the past. You want to talk about recognizing the refusal of having African Americans be able to go into hospitals that actually have better facilities and better services, and we had to go to the black hospitals. We had to look at things about what racism impacts. So that's inequitable. So when we talk about equity, we talk about recognizing that and then adding what is required to be able to make someone to a point where equality then becomes relevant. And that's where I've always supported affirmative action for that point. Because affirmative action recognizes that there has been barriers against black people who wanted to have businesses, that they were denied contracts because of the color of their skin, not their abilities.
Right.
And so today we need to talk about equity, and we have these inequities in our healthcare that because of the barriers, because of unfair access to healthcare, we have more hypertension, we have more asthma, we have more obesity because people are not providing proper food outlets in our community, right. And they have all these fast foods, and they have all these foods with high salt and fat, and so there we have obesity. So you have to be able to be understanding that in order to deal with that, you have to deal with the inequities and deal with the fact that we need to bring fresh food offerings into our communities.
Right, and the thing is that there's no Whole Foods on East 55th, there's a Whole Foods over there on Cedar.
But there's ability for us within the federal government to be able to provide grants and technical assistance to assist an entrepreneur who by himself or herself cannot 100% bring I'm not even going to say a Whole Foods type of operation because there's some other things associated with Whole Foods when it comes to their goals of profit. But bringing fresh fruits and vegetables
right.
and opportunities, provide 40% or 30% of the money that's needed to capitalize a grocery store. Allow the federal government to be in partnership. Increase whether it's purchase the land, and so that the land doesn't cost as part of the procedure. There's ways for government to partner with private sector and therefore bring those things into the community and not let the marketplace drive it. The problem with Cleveland right now and other urban areas is that the marketplace is driving where the investment money is going. So you have a Tremont versus a Glenville.
Right.
So why does Tremont look like what it does and Glenville looks like? And Glenville used to be the Gold Coast. And then it started losing the middle class professionals because the restrictive covenants of Shaker and Cleveland Heights ultimately was lifted, and folks started to move out and what have you. Many of them now moving to Solon and Twinsburg because they're moving even further out. So you've got to be able to recognize that it's unacceptable that the investment dollars that doesn't go to Mount Pleasant but goes to Ohio City is inequitable. So government needs to recognize, and that's one reason why I ran for mayor is because I recognize the imbalance of neighborhood. If you remember my logo for my campaign was neighborhoods first.
Right.
Because of the discrepancies in our neighborhood when it comes to investment. But I'm going to still be able to impact neighborhood from a federal standpoint as a Congress people as well. And it's be able to bring money into neighborhoods who needs it and deserves it and not have to compete on Glenville cannot compete on an equal level with Tremont because Tremont further ahead. Glenville needs to be equitable approaches to be able to do investments to help businesses decide to stay in Glenville, invest in them so that they stay there versus moving to another
neighborhood. So, I mean, that's pretty much what people want. I think the pandemic has shown, that you don't want to. How can I put it to you like this? People are sitting at home getting more money off of unemployment than they would with what they were being paid. And the thing is that you don't want people to sit at home. You want people to work. But if you're not paying them a living wage and they're getting more money sitting at home filing every week until that runs out, then what are you going to do?
Well, the answer is going into lifting up the businesses, investing, particularly those who are in the service industry, being able to stabilize them so that they can pay higher wages and so that folks can. I think without a doubt, most folks prefer to have a career, to work, to be able to get up every day and feel useful and not just sit around and collect a check, despite the, what some folks believe that's the case. That is not the case that I have found, that people work hard. In fact, as Jesse Jackson once said during his speech, is that a lot of people get up and take the early bus because they come to work, they go to work. Now they work, we just need to be able on the other side of that bus ride that they make more wages, higher wages. People want to work so that they can feed their families. And if they had a choice of being able to work for an income that's more than what they receive with unemployment, they will do that. And we all know that unemployment is not going to be forever.
Right.
So it's important while we are providing unemployment that we stabilize the businesses so that the job offers is there. And we also have to expand public transportation. We have to strengthen public transportation so that the job options for someone who doesn't have a car but can go into the suburbs and work because of public transportation. We have to invest in public transportation. And that's another thing I'm committed to, infrastructure. And I mean, we can talk forever. There's a broadband issue. There's a digital divide. In Glenville, there's only some believe that the web should be free access for everybody. I don't think it should be left up the ability to pay. I think the minimum access to the internet everyone should have.
Right.
Now, if you want to add some bells and whistles beyond the ability for someone to go on the web, learn about job opportunities, educate themselves, learn how to build a business, look at YouTube and learn how to, fix your bathroom toilet. They need to have access. Now, a lot of people have smartphones, but I think that ultimately we need to close the divide when it comes to the web and the internet.
Right, is the ability to get 5G and,
Exactly, that's the infrastructure.
Right.
And Biden understands that, and that's in his bill as well. So that's one of the priorities I would have as well. I'm in an area that was clearly redlined when it came to that, and we're still under the thumb on that, and so it should be free access.
It's free access to the internet?
To the broadband, yep.
Broadband. Lighter note, NFL draft. I asked, what did you think about it? Did you get a chance to go down there?
Well, I didn't go down there physically down there, even though I work across the street from it, so I was able to see the layout. First of all, I was so very proud. I was so very proud of what I saw. The city made itself proud, and they said it was the highest watching of the draft. And unfortunately, Mother Nature also cooperated.
It was football weather. That's what it was. It was football weather. Football weather.
It stopped raining on Thursday, on the first night at 8 o'clock. And so that was great. So, and it was beautiful. I mean, Terminal Tower turned the colors of whatever other team was up on. I mean, it was so creative. So I'm very proud of it. And I love what the Browns did. And I'm a big Browns fan.
Right.
I always have been.
So you like the draft picks?
I do like the draft.
The one interesting guy is going to be that guy from Auburn, that Schwartz, who can run a 4.28. Yeah.
Not a big guy, but when used properly, oh my God. He's clearly the fastest on the team and probably the fastest in the league. And the linebacker, the name escapes me.
J.O.K. I like. I ain't going to mess it up.
He has the potential to to be the steal of the draft. And so I'm delighted that we have Clowney, and I'm looking forward to the Brown season and what it means for all of us.
Listen, I don't know about you, but I'm not trading Baker Mayfield for Aaron Rodgers.
No, I wouldn't trade him either.
Right.
I think Baker was on his way up even further. You could probably get a Super Bowl, 1 or 2 Super Bowls if you brought Rodgers in there now. But the long term, we still have a chance to get a Super Bowl with Baker.
You know what? The queen with the gold mic has struck. T-Rex, you know what she just said? Go Steelers. Boo. Jay.
Oh, my God.
You know what? Tired of you.
Is that why she had the?
That's why she that's why she had to go, Mike. You know what? She on my Facebook, causing trouble already. That's what you know what? That's why That's why Jeff ain't come the first time. You was talking to Steelers crap.
Just tell her this: scoreboard.
Scoreboard. Check the scoreboard the last time. Playoffs.
Scoreboard.
Playoffs.
You know, okay.
Jay, playoffs.
That's all you got to say.
All you got to say.
Right now, we know what happened in the past, but it's all about now.
Well, now it's about now and right.
Good luck with your broken down quarterback.
Good
luck.
Jay, that was from Jeff.
Now, they need to go get Rodgers if they won't have any shot.
I think they salary cap. They would need to borrow some money from us.
They'll give up a lot of assets.
Exactly. So you see. You want like making it. You want to. So in your first 30 days, you will make an immediate impact when you are elected. Correct?
Yes, both from a standpoint of policy involvement as well as constituent services. People need to be able to access the benefits of the federal government, the programs, and being able to have access to job training and vocational training. So that is really an aspect that's not talked a lot during the campaign. So we're always talking about the bigger issues, but being able to connect. And I'm used to that because I come from a city council mentality. I spent 14 years in Cleveland City Council, and that is a frontline mentality that says what you need, you access, and you deal with it. And you bring it to them person by person, family by family.
Right. So, all right.
Who's phone?
Who's on the phone? Probably kind of. Dang.
Hey, Jay.
Hello. How are you? What's going on?
Oh, it came out.
Right here? No, right here.
Still can't hear?
I can hear.
You know what? That's why take it off speed. That's why your phone breaking up because just like your quarterback's broken up already. Yes. It's kind.
Wait. Excuse me. Jay, we're talking about the Browns. You call in to talk about the Steelers and then say the hate is real? The hate against the Browns?
We didn't hate on your Steelers. Y'all got a good running back.
Don't try to. We ain't got to try to make up to no Steelers. They do not have a good running back. All right. They have an average running back.
Go ahead. You, it's between you and Jeff. I'm out of this right now.
They have a good coach. That's what they got. They got a great coach. Okay. Well, they said about $100 million actually. I saw no.
Yeah, 100 million. Wow.
Within the region.
I know I spent like $50 myself on food in them food trucks.
So you contributed toward that.
Yeah, it was. Right. Yeah. We love you.
I know that's right. Well, thanks for calling. Good to hear from you.
Yeah. Get an old line for Ben's broken arm. Love you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. No, we ain't up on you. It's about time to, it's about time to go. Oh, it's about to go. We love you, Jay. We love the queen with the gold mic. But before we do go, Jeff, and I need for him to, I need for y'all to open up your checkbooks to contribute to this man's campaign. Because the more money you contribute to his campaign, the money he can put into him advertising on this station.
There you go.
Thank you. So I'm like, listen.
Connect the dots. Connect the dots.
You said problems equal solutions, right? Didn't you say that?
I did say
Problem is, we want to put you on. The solution is you got to pay us. So the solution is you got to get the contributions in your pocket. That's what we want.
I'm paying for you to run ads.
All right. Yes.
I did not pay to have this conversation.
Right. But,
Let's be clear.
right. Yeah, like, you didn't pay to have this conversation. Not yet. But it's like, but no, we want to make, but before we go, how big is African American media? How important is it?
Critical. It is, and it's been recognized at a national level. Biden expanded the use of it more than in the past. So I do believe that with your ability to penetrate and be specific with who you're going after, you can do the sub-demographic. So it absolutely needs to be a part of any menu of items for us to contribute. To use for the campaign.
All right. So speaking of which, run the website, email, so they can contribute or volunteer or both.
JeffJohnsonForCongress.com and email JeffJohnsonForCongress@gmail.com.
Okay.
And we welcome everyone, and as we pursue this, the first vote will be July 7th, which is the early vote begins July 7th.
Mm-hmm.
The actual election is August 3rd.
Okay. That's the primary.
Vote early,
Mm-hmm.
and keep an eye out, and please be critical of not just who has the most the flashiest brochure, but rather who has the most committed and in-depth career of commitment and proven achievements.
Right. The proven resume. Yes, you take it. You say how long you been in public service for?
Around 32 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the thing is that
I started young.
In public service, God bless you. So, Lazala, anything you want to add before we get out of here?
Well, thank you so much for coming. It was great to have you here.
I'm glad you're here because that's why I'm here. I appreciate it.
You know what? I defended you, I fed you, and this is. I see you again, though. All right. So, speaking of which, do you have a campaign office yet?
I do not have a campaign office. I work out of I don't have one that's in the neighborhood directly from a street level. I have an office here in this building in Euclid Green that I do my campaign work out of, primarily because I was doing law, but now I'm focused on my campaign. And that's so not one that is where I would ask to send mail to.
Uh-huh.
I would prefer to go with the email.
Email.
And then I will give them the P.O. box when it's appropriate. I would prefer to communicate that way.
And you're on the ballot.
I am on the ballot.
You are. You're
Jeff
no,
Johnson.
you don't have to worry about no signatures or nothing. You are on the ballot. You are square on the ballot.
Square. I put petitions in. They were certified. I'm ready to roll. It's just a matter of touching as many folks as I can, communicate with as many folks as I can, and earn the vote beginning in July.
All right, that's what's up.
And I
So
appreciate you. In all seriousness, you my man. You my man. Thank you for tonight. I appreciate you.
no problem. Thank you for taking the time with us. I know you're gonna be running and gunning these past couple of months. So we wish you well, Godspeed. If nobody tells you that they love you today, I do. This is Larry H. Garner along with Lazala Peary. Thank you for Mike Seal stopping in, candidate for Ward 7. And, of course, thank you for Jeff Johnson, Jeffrey D. Johnson, who's running for the Congressional District 11 seat. What does that seat cover?
Say that again.
What areas does that seat cover?
Oh, it's 32 municipalities that ranges from the greater Akron area all the way up into the east side and part of the near west side of Cleveland. It takes in cities like East Cleveland, South Euclid, Orange, Beechwood. It's 32.
All right, it's 32. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah,
A lot of people, 700,000 folk. All right, so we out of here. And before we go, we're going to go leave off with this one. This is the new one by DJ Khaled, Nas, and Jay-Z. Sorry, not sorry. So we'll be out of here. Thank you, Jeff. If nobody tells you that I love you today, they love you today. I do. We out. Peace, love, and hair grease. We see you later.